What fan theory do you 100% accept as true? Mad Max folktale theory. The movies and games all have different narrators and different takes on Max because they're all stories being told by people in the wasteland. All of these great deeds and accomplishments are being attributed to one man who may or may not have ever really existed. Double matrix theory. The matrix has an inner core and then an outer shell designed to give the illusion of escape. It's basically a corral where they can keep the escaped humans until the defense mechanism, the machines, can purge them. This is why Neo could use his powers outside the matrix, why Smith could leave, and why Cypher could go in without anyone noticing. That matrix theory could very well be the plot of Matrix 4. Bitch, you thought. The architect. The world is not that wasteland. It was all a Bitcoin mining operation all along. Andy's parents are in the middle of a divorce when the first Toy Story is taking place. I remember asking my parents why is it just Andy and his mum, and they said, well, some people live like that. Pixar. Rendering is hard. Let's just make one parent. We save on voice acting as well. Fans. The father is missing because he's dead. Fun fact. All the children at Andy's birthday party are actually just Andy. They used the same model. Have you ever seen a group of 6-year-old boys? They do all look alike. Pepe Sylvia is just Charlie trying to pronounce Pennsylvania. The creators said this wasn't canon, but they love the theory so much that they wish it was real, undefined. I'm getting letters for the guy named Pepe Sylvia. And I think it's a big conspiracy. And I try to crack the code. Some fans, very astutely, have put together that because my character can't read, Pepe Sylvia might be Pennsylvania on the mail. Laughter Day. But actually, I don't think, I think for us, it was just a funny name for a guy to go crazy about. But I like their theory better. It makes so much sense that I'm completely shocked the writers came up with the name Pepe Sylvia as a complete coincidence. It would explain everything. Why Pepe Sylvia isn't real. Why it's on all the mail, and it's a running joke that his illiteracy causes problems. Also, Pepe Sylvia isn't like a common name, which makes it all the more weird. I'm surprised that it wasn't intentional as well. Pepe Sylvia and Pennsylvania? They've got to be pulling my leg. Like in the other guys where the captain keeps quoting TLC lyrics but claims he doesn't know who they are. This is a little out there. But hear me out. The year 2015 we see in Back to the Future 2 is what would have happened if not for Chernobyl. Which leads to the argument that something in the movies, specifically 2 and 3, caused Chernobyl to happen. As you know, the year the characters are from is 1985. With Chernobyl happening in 1986. My take is, learning of the Libyans' attempt to procure plutonium, the Soviets send a spy to Hill Valley to learn more in order to prevent destabilizing relations during the Cold War. The spy arrives late, and in the timeline established by just the first movie, leaves. This is the timeline we see in the second movie, which is eventually erased. However, Doc Brown meddles with time again, and causes the events of the second and thus third movie. The spy witnesses the end of the third movie with the flying train, and assumes it's a new sort of aircraft. He investigates the scene after the main characters depart and finds wreckage of the DeLorean. Among the wreckage is some parts of the destroyed fusion reactor. Relaying findings to the Soviets, they get the impression that the US is significantly ahead of them in nuclear development. To combat this, they aggressively green-light a bunch of nuclear projects, including a risky test that results in the Chernobyl meltdown. The resulting event scares people the world over and hinders nuclear research and progression. With lack of funding and roadblocks to more nuclear proliferation, fusion technology is never developed. Thus hampered. The timeline turns into ours. In the 2015 timeline shown in BTTF2, the nuclear research breakthroughs make the rest of the technology possible, including flying cars and hoverboards. With some developments happening in the late 80s, the economy is lifted and the downturn of the early 90s does not happen. This has an effect of extending the garish fashion of the 80s forward. Hence why the clothes look different as well. So we live in the bad ending? Undefined. Miles Morales is considered a death omen among Peter Parkers who are aware of the multiverse. Undefined. Alright. As the other commenters are stating, Miles usually succeeds Peter as Spider-Man after Peter is killed. This happened in Spider-Verse, the Ultimate Comics. And I think it's implied that the same thing happened in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, though in an alternate universe. Not to mention, I bet a lot of people were expecting Peter to die at the beginning of the Miles Morales video game. Now, in Rick and Morty, a show in which the multiverse plays a huge role, alternate versions of characters tend to fulfill the same role which Ricks are generally aware of. Jerry's are awful. Morty's are stupid but necessary. Beth's must always be treated with kindness, etc. We see this in Spider-Man 2. Uncle Ben gets killed. Peter is romantically involved with someone with the initials M, J, or Gwen Stacy, who usually meets a tragic end herself. He has a best friend named Harry Osborn who oftentimes ends up as an adversary, though may generally mean well. You get the idea. From here on in, it's pretty much all assumptions. So take everything with a grain of salt. While the idea of the multiversal community of doppelgangers is more often associated with Reed Richards, with the Council of Ricks even being a pun on Marvel's Council of Reeds, I personally believe that Peter may have the intellect to discover safe multiversal travel, make use of it and establish a similar community. And if these Peters can travel the multiverse, they may notice the patterns that we ourselves notice in all of these Spider-Man stories, including Miles taking up the mantle of Spider-Man after that universe's Peter's usually violent death. Maybe they treat their Miles getting his powers like we would being diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now that being said, it may be possible that some Peters may not save their Miles or prevent him from getting his powers in order to save themselves. Personally, I think this can be explored further by having a villain who is hunting down versions of Miles from across the multiverse. There was a precedent with Wolf Spider from the Ultimate cartoon, though he was interested in hunting down all Spider people for his own megalomania. This Wolf Spider would be hunting Miles either in the name of vengeance for all the Peters or believes he is saving Peters who have yet to die. In a perverted sense. This is just a thought I had a year or two ago and would really like to see it explored. Miles pops up. Peters. Ospeep. Pinky is the genius. Even the theme song hints at the theory. One is a genius. The other's insane. They're Pinky and the brain. Can you elaborate on this? Here's a good summary from the Fan Theories wiki. The main gist of the series is this. Brain pitches world domination plan to Pinky. Pinky gives him some advice on the plan. The brain ignores it. The brain's plan fails. And Pinky's previous statement regarding the plan proves to be correct. There was also an incident in which the brain entered into a game show, and he answers every question correctly. But he was ultimately stumped on the final question. Shockingly, Pinky was the one who ultimately answered the question correctly. And it's also shown that Pinky can read, whereas the brain can barely write his own name. There was also an episode in which the brain hooked Pinky to a machine that was designed to make him smarter. What's odd though is that Pinky's personality was still intact. and that he ultimately found an error in the machine's calculations. He rearranged the machine's wiring, and the machine ultimately reveals that the brain himself was the reason that his plans always failed. The other thing to point out is that in the theme song for the series, it never specified who was the genius and who was the insane one. You only had to infer from their brain cases. There's also the fact that Pinky's name comes first on the title screen, and the brains comes next. I completely agree. It's been too long since I've watched it to give specifics. But Pinky was always doing unexpectedly brilliant things. I'd love to do an analysis of the way they subverted tropes. What? And why it's unnecessary. The show says it all.
Hey guys, if you like this video then smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more contents like this. And don't forget to press that bell icon to get notified for future videos. Thanks for watching. Click here to see more videos.